Welcome to the Dyslexia Mom Life Podcast. I'm your host, Nicole Holcomb, a mom just like you, raising a bright daughter with dyslexia. I look forward to sharing what I am learning on my dyslexia parenting journey with you. And remember, you are not alone. You got this. You're listening to episode 92, Assistive Technology for Dyslexia. And today I have a special guest with us, Katie Larew. And she is going to teach us about assistive technology tools for dyslexia. And I am just so honored to have her on the podcast to be able to give some tips and to connect you with the resources that she has available just for you. Katie, though, is no stranger to dyslexia. She is actually a certified dyslexia practitioner through the Center for Effective Reading Instruction. And she currently provides assistive technology consultations and trainings to K-12 students, parents, and teachers. Katie also has experience providing staff development workshops focusing specifically on assistive technology tools to support in the areas of reading, writing, organization, and executive functioning. Prior to that, though, Katie spent a number of years working in special education, close to 13 years if I recall. And prior to that, she enjoyed time as a special education teacher, collaborating and providing resources in New Jersey. But from there, you'll hear today how her path took her to Orton Gillingham practitioner training and how she ended up getting training for assistive technology and becoming an assistive technology specialist, which is what she does today. Her goal is to help our children develop their own personal toolkit to address their specific areas of need. And I look forward to you hearing the conversation with me and Katie. So let's just jump right in. All right. So, Katie, welcome to the Dyslexia Mom Life Podcast. I have to say, I am so glad that we are collaborating and that we've got this connection now. And I have to admit, I'm a little bit of a geek and a nerd as it comes to technology. I love all things technology. And anyone that's been listening for a while knows I'm a huge Apple fan. But, I'm also versed in Google and other things as well. So I am personally so excited to talk to you today and to share what you are doing and learning with our community. So welcome, Katie. I'm so glad to have you here.
Thank you so much, Nicole. It's so wonderful to be here. And I really appreciate you reaching out. And I am so grateful that we've been able to connect.
Yes, it's going to be fun. We're going to have a great fun today. So one of the things too, we were talking about earlier is before we even hit record is that, we, both of us are just, honored and blessed to be serving in this community and so excited to be sharing this during Dyslexia Awareness Month. And, we're all in and we want to do what we can to help parents. And of course, for me, I'm all about moms and helping moms thrive and survive during these parenting journey years. And so Katie, there may be some people that haven't found you yet and found your assistive technology for dyslexia business. And I'm just so excited to share that with everyone today. But for moms who might be new to you, tell them a little bit about Katie. Tell them what you would like them to know about you before we get started talking about the amazing work that you're doing.
Oh, thank you. My journey really began 15 years ago back in New Jersey. So you might hear a little bit of my accent as I'm going through today. But I was a classroom special education teacher for 7 years. I worked as an in-class support, resource room, and co-teaching. I was very fortunate. I had an incredible director. She really was supportive and she focused on professional development. And they said, try to get as many certifications as you can. And I took those words very seriously, and I didn't know where they would take me. But at the time, I was like, all right, let's do this. So I began taking professional development courses, and I started to focus on dyslexia through an Orton Gillingham certification program. Our school district was able to have a cohort of teachers, and we were able to complete a 2-year program to get our certified dyslexia practitioner certification. So I did that, and go ahead.
Let me just say, Katie, that's amazing. Like I'm in Georgia. And so things here are a little different. And although we're making amazing advancements in the area, it is still kind of slow for us, as you can imagine. But I love that you had the opportunity to really kind of pick your professional development. And I love that your district, really invested in
Mhm.
the certification and the training. That's amazing. And one of the things I wanted to mention, and thank you so much for sharing, is I've seen a couple comments here recently, even in a lot of social, especially this month with Dyslexia Awareness Month, about awareness of teachers and what all we should know and not know, especially in the area of special education. And I think it's important, and I'm so glad you pointed out that working in the area of special education is such a broad area if you think about all the different learning differences we have. And dyslexia is so unique. And I think I hear it in your voice. Once you start going down that road, it becomes a passion for you. And so that I'm so excited to hear more about that piece of your journey. And I'm so glad that, you were able to get that initial, kind of spark there. So once you were able to get some of that training, what were some of the things that you were learning along the way that really changed your trajectory as, where you went after that?
It was so incredible to absolutely to have the leadership and, to think about how can we help our teachers, but then also help our students. So having that, and then thinking about with the program, then incorporating it into our classroom. So that started to happen. So, incorporating the Orton Gillingham approach within my classroom, but then there were some students that still needed additional support. And being a classroom teacher and realizing that I couldn't be by their side at all times, and I wanted to help them have more confidence. I wanted them to become more independent. So again, this incredible director also recognized this and started to introduce assistive technology as a team approach. So we had assistive technology within our classroom. At the time, it was a desktop computer, and the students, would take turns and utilize those programs or come to the classroom. But as time started to go on and technology developed, the access also changed. So we needed to figure out how can we meet the needs of the student, but then also help them to become more familiar with the program. So I was fortunate to get on an assistive technology team within my school district, and we had professional development and we supported teachers as well. And kind of organically, the dyslexia and assistive technology started to come together. And that whole never stop learning mentality.
Absolutely.
So I went on to get a teacher leadership certification. I had my master's in special education, dual certifications with general education and special education, and then also went on to become an assistive technology professional with the certification there as well.
That's awesome. So let's take a step back real quick and let's talk a little bit about your journey a little bit more, if you don't mind, which is when you went through that 2-year program of training. Because I think a lot of times parents, especially moms that are new to the journey, they hear OG and they hear all these words and acronyms that we educators love to throw out. But, when we think about it, I think about the commitment you made to go ahead and to do that additional training and the time that took, probably personally too. What I want to ask you is this: once you were able to go through that 2 years of OG training and that Orton Gillingham training, and you were starting to implement that in your classroom, and it makes sense to me, perfect sense, that there were periods where you thought there's got to be more to help support. And we'll talk more about that in a minute, the assistive technology piece. But I want you to share with moms, what was the difference for you as an educator to be an educator previously, and then now that you have this additional OG training, could you see a different light in your kids, your students? Because obviously you were teaching from a different skill set. So could you talk a little bit about, because I think sometimes, we are at a private school for dyslexia, but not everybody has access to that. And not everybody wants that. Some people want to stay in their community schools, but they struggle to know what should I be asking or watching for. And so I'm just curious as you started, going over that bridge and looking at it and having all these aha moments, because anyone I've ever talked to that's had the training is like, it opens up your world to like, wow, everybody should know this. Every teacher should know this. So can you share a little bit about, a teacher that is trained with Orton Gillingham? What did that look like for you? And really specifically as the transformation to your kids, like what were you seeing as your teaching changed?
Well, I was fortunate where the college that I had done my undergrad and then also grad school, they did incorporate some instruction. So we were able to have some Wilson training. So I had a little tiny piece of it in college.
That's
And
great. Yeah,
it was
that's great.
amazing. Yes. And then, the school district, we were very fortunate again that the curriculum that they used also incorporated multisensory approach. However, or in Gillingham, the 2-year program, I am so grateful for the cohort that we had because we were able to support one another. And, we had a lot of coffee because it was after school.
Yeah.
So, we would teach all day and then we would go to our Orton class and we would actually be able to tutor the students within the district as part of the program. And we would get observed, we would have exams, everything. So all of a sudden we started to look at everything with a completely different lens.
Absolutely.
And even though you might not be in that reading classroom and sitting at that kidney table and, doing those sound cards and everything, you would then bring it into the classroom and you're in social studies or you're in math or science. And all of a sudden you get a new vocabulary word. And you're trying to think about, okay, well, how do I introduce this to the student? Let's talk about the root of the word. Let's talk about the meaning. Let's talk about how do we break this word apart? How do we utilize all the strategies that you're learning within Orton, but then bring it over to all of the other subject areas? And with that, again, going back to that piece where you can't be with them all the time.
Right, sure.
Thinking about teaching them those skills. So, but then also educating the other teachers as well about different tools and strategies that they can use. And then thinking about how it can be used across the board. I was very fortunate. I had an incredible co-teacher and she was completely open to trying different strategies. And we were able to incorporate the techniques and tools that, learned within Orton into the classroom as well. So
that's amazing. That's great. No, it does. It's just a little bit. And I love that the things that you had in your district, that's great that you had those access to those additional tools. And then this just kind of gave you a deeper knowledge of how to dig a little deeper and to look at things a little differently. So you were talking about a few minutes ago along this journey, you then had the opportunity and it sounds like you had the interest as well to say, but what next? Like, what next? What do I do next? How do I further continue to help my students when they're at home or when they're in another teacher's classroom? What can I do to help them have that kind of toolbox, if you will, to be able to be successful, even as they get older, right? Like, what can you put in place where after they leave your classroom and leave what you're able to do to better themselves? And it sounds like you started having those thoughts pretty quickly on as to, okay, what else, especially as you were learning more and more about the technology components. And I'll say it's a stressful time to be living right now because of, just all the things that we've endured in the last year, but it's also an exciting time because, I think people are so much more open to technology and Zoom and learning, from, I've got tutors in my group that tutor all over because they can jump on a Zoom call or whatever. And so it's amazing the world that's opened up. But I think for a student to be in this world right now, to be dyslexic, they have different opportunities from an assistive technology standpoint that I wouldn't have had growing up as a student, just because I'm going to date myself, but I didn't have a computer until I was in college. So my daughter already has an iPad and she's 10. So, and access to a computer and all those things. So it's just, they live in a different world. And so I'm excited about that though, because I do believe it's going to give them a deeper support that also empowers them at the same time. Right.
Absolutely. Well, and I also just want to add, bringing my experience with Orton Gillingham, the importance of instruction. That I am all for technology and thinking about how it can create greater independence and confidence, but it does not replace the importance of the instruction. So it's
Absolutely.
really a matter of adding another tool to our toolbox. So
absolutely. I love that.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's got to start with the core of, what do I need to know? And then I think about, like, for our daughter, as as she's trying to figure out how to write things down, or she's trying to figure out, how to go a little bit deeper in math or something like that, like those other assistive technology tools and apps and things like that. All the technology really can give her practice and help her deepen her understanding and maybe even flush out a concept. But we're fortunate because the school we're at is providing a lot of those tools with us and teaching our child how to use those. And so that's a huge benefit for us. And I know not everyone has that, but I do that, and that's why you're here today, because I want us to talk about that. And so tell us a little bit about, so you started into that direction. You started, again, you had an amazing, sounds like an amazing experience with some people that kind of took you under their wing and that were mentors and helped provide opportunities for you. So what happened next?
So after 7 years in the classroom, I realized I was ready for a change. And I took a leap, a really big leap, and moved across the country to San Diego, California. And I've been working as an assistive technology specialist I'm going on my 8th year now. So I really,
And I can hear it in your voice. You're loving it, right?
I really am.
I can tell.
Because working with students from kindergarten through 12th grade and across the board in terms of different needs and different strengths, but every single day is different, and trying to figure out, okay, how can I help you? And it's a small piece of the puzzle. I get to work with a student, but then also I have the opportunity to work with teachers and parents and service providers, and trying to figure out what works for you, and let's talk about it. Let's try things out and figure out how to make you successable and feel that you're able to access the curriculum, both in school and at home as well.
Right. So you're really just another, I said not just another, but you're part of that, village or that tribe or that community that the child has to figure out as a team, how can we best help this student be successful? And so you're able to come in and help help the students to understand, but also work with parents and educators. And I know you do some workshops and things to kind of broaden, here's some more tools that you can bring into the schools. And so I think that's amazing as well. And so I love those pieces of that. And I'd love to hear more about, when you're doing that work, and what a great opportunity to move and be able to do that, full time. That's really amazing that you were able to get into that and to really have an opportunity to get even more specialized in what you really have a passion for. And so that's amazing. I know sometimes I hear parents say, so there's two things that come to mind. One is, let's start on the school side. So one is I hear people say, all right, well, there's all these tools or, assistive technology or whatever y'all want to call it. And how do I get the school to offer the right fit for my child? And how do I know what my child needs? Like, I'm thinking about a parent that's, could be new or maybe just not very educated on what is assistive technology and what's available. And how do I ensure that my child gets the best fit for, for example, my daughter's dyslexic, but she's also dysgraphic. And so, we're dealing with the dysgraphia and the written expression piece. And fortunately for us, math is not a concern, but I do have some friends that their kids are really struggling in math. And we think that it's part of the dyslexia or the whole, I never say it right, dyscalculia. I don't ever say it right, but the math part of dyslexia. And I know that they probably are struggling with those pieces. So I say that to say, as you said a minute ago, every child's so unique and their path is unique. And so I'm just wondering, how do we best help support moms that are trying to figure out, how do I even approach a school to say, this is what we need, and how do we know if it's even an effective tool? Like, what if we're being offered something and we're like, maybe that's not the best fit? So do you have some tips that you give to parents as they're working with their schools? And then in a minute, we'll talk more about how can we give some tips for things to do at home. But let's start about school, because I know that's a source of anxiety sometimes for families. They want to make sure, am I as the mom making sure my child's getting everything that they should be getting so they can be successful? And we know that instruction, like you said, is on the forefront. This is just another layer of support that we might, that they need to be aware of, right?
Absolutely. One of the first things I try to do is focus on your child's strengths. What does your child feel comfortable with? What do they enjoy doing? Like you were just saying that, math is not an area of concern. However, with reading or writing or note taking or organization, thinking about all those different tasks within school, but then thinking of, okay, what does that look like in the classroom? And as you just said, between classroom and home, they can look very different. However, as a parent, you know your child and you know what it looks like at home. And one of the first things I would recommend doing is reaching out to your child's teacher or their case manager and to start that conversation, because that conversation might also lead to finding out what kinds of tools the classroom is already utilizing. So assistive technology can be low tech to high tech. Low tech could be something like a graphic organizer, slant board, an adaptive pencil. And then you might go into a specific type of software to be able to have word prediction or text to speech or speech to text. And it's possible your child might be utilizing some of these tools already, and it just might not be shared with you, or it might not be written into the IEP. But that's one of the first things that I would recommend doing, is talking to your child's teacher, case manager, just to find out a little bit more about what tools are being utilized, and then also thinking about what are some areas of concern.
Love that. Absolutely. And yeah, I think too, we're all so busy, right? And we get home and we're trying to do 500 things. We're trying to get the homework done and all that. And even when we have parent teacher conferences, it's such a short period of time sometimes that we have. And so for anyone that's been following me for a minute, they know that I'm really big on building relationships with schools and really reaching out and having conversations with the teachers, because like it or not, our kids spend the bulk of their day at school with other professionals. And so we have to figure out, and I love that, because that piece of reaching out, because when you're having those collaborative conversations, it really does open the door. And it may be that at home, a piece of technology or a particular strategy maybe doesn't work. Maybe there's, 4 other siblings at home and it's chaotic. And, maybe it's okay. Well, Nicole needs to have a set of headphones and she needs to go in the other room and she needs to listen to Learning Ally, read her the book. Like, what is it that, I need as far as providing the things that I would need as a student. So I think when we talk about those things, sometimes what's happening in the classroom looks different at home, like you said. And it could be because our child is, well, they're with us, one, right? They're different with us than they are with anybody else. And then also they're tired. And so how can we best support them and help reinforce what they're learning at school? And at the same time, the thing I like about assistive technology is that we are, raising digital natives, as I think I've heard someone say before. And so they love the tech piece and they don't even think about it as it's just part of what they experience. And so I think the more that we can do to infuse that into their home life, I think that helps as well, because it does, that's that level of comfort for them. And then some of those pieces, depending on what programs you're using, they're fun, right? Like they have some great graphics. They've got some just great ways to practice things that are different. It might be that they're flashcards in an app instead of holding an index card, although we've done both at our house. So it's just kind of figuring out what works best for your child. And so I like that first piece as to, really looking at what it is your child's strengths are, and then looking at what are the areas that we need to look at as far as areas of concerns. I love those pieces as well. And I love when you talk about task at school. So, when we think about task at school, those can look different than at home, right?
Yes. So what you bring up is the environment. In terms of thinking about your child and thinking about the school environment, home environment, that environment, even within the school, can look different as well. So your child might be moving classrooms. They might be with one teacher for one subject area and then in a different classroom for another subject. So thinking about what does that look like across the board, and then thinking about what are the tools that are being utilized in each of those environments, and then thinking about what your child feels most comfortable with.
Right. Absolutely. And so let me ask you a difficult question. So I don't mean to put you on the spot. So, and it's this is like, I think I kind of alluded to this earlier. So as you go into, these conversations with your teachers, and let's say, for example, let's say you were listening to this podcast and maybe you recommend and say, hey, I found this to be, which we're not really going to get into recommendations of apps today, but, let's say you were to say, I found this one to be amazing. And they were to go back to their school district and say, hey, I've looked into this. It would be a great resource. And the district says, oh, well, we don't support that. How do you have some of those kind of conversations that can be challenging? to have with a school district, or maybe you use something at home personally over the summer that was like a free trial and you would love for your school to continue it. Like, for example, our school district, well, our private school provides Learning Ally to all the kids. Mm-hmm. So my daughter has an account, but I've had other parents reach out to me and say, I would really love for my daughter to have access to something like that. But Learning Ally is not free where I am at. My school head district would have to purchase it. So have you been able to give any recommendations to parents as far as having those kind of uncomfortable conversations as to, I get that, but this is what my dyslexic kiddo needs? Like, what would you recommend there?
So I would definitely say having a conversation. And in terms of a specific type of program or support, I'll be honest that it varies across the board. And just because it might work for one child or student does not guarantee that it'll work for another. Every school and every district is also different as well. So as you were mentioning, that there might be a school that is utilizing a specific program, but then in another school, they might be using a different program. So what I would recommend doing is to talk more about the type of support versus specific program. So for example, let's say if your child required word prediction or text to speech or speech to text, thinking about these tools versus a specific program allows you to also try different programs out to see which one is, beneficial for your child, but it might also not be available to the district or through the school district. So there might be another program or another tool that's similar, but also provides a support similar to that, like with the text to speech or speech to text or word prediction.
Right. And if I remember correctly, aren't there also, or at least where we're at, if you're at a point where you feel like there's additional support your child may need, you can even ask for like an assistive technology evaluation in your district, right? So that professionals in your district can kind of figure out and help you if you don't know what to ask for. If you're like, I don't know what my child would need, then you could even ask the district for, I know here you could ask for like an assistive technology evaluation, and then they would, look at and determine what supports your child needs in addition to the instructional support and services. Is that something common that you hear too?
Yes. So determining the assistive technology supports, again, figuring out with the student and then thinking about their strengths and then the environment and the tasks and the tools. It can definitely be something that can be discussed within the IEP team. So having a collaborative effort amongst the whole team, within the classroom teachers, as well as the parents and the student and additional service providers, to try to think about what types of tools would be able to support those areas of need.
Right. That makes sense. And so that's all great information. I appreciate that, because I know that there's just, and constantly new stuff's coming out, right? So it's so hard to say. I mean, I gave one example earlier, but it's just because it's something that we use and we have used in our house, and it's been very helpful, but it might not be helpful to someone else, right? So it just kind of depends on what your child's unique needs are at the time. And like you said, I love too that it's going to change, especially as they get older. What are they going to need next, and things like that.
And thank you for bringing that up, because that's something I also try to encourage parents and team members to look at assistive technology as an ongoing conversation. That just because your child might start with a particular support in elementary school does not mean that they will continue with that same support throughout high school. That may change. They may continue with it, or it might also evolve and grow. And depending on their needs, assistive technology supports may also change.
Right. And I think that's so important to remember that, our children's needs are going to change as they get older. And it's not and that's why if you're listening, that's why this is a journey. It is a journey, and every piece of it looks a little different. And some pieces are more challenging than others, but I always say it's a journey because it's not like a one size fits all. And it's not that one thing can check that off the box. I have assistive technology, so now I'm good. It's not quite that easy, but we want to make sure that you're aware of it, so you know what questions to ask, and that you have some pieces in your toolbox as well. So what advice would you give to parents as to, I know that there's a conversation to be had at school, but let's say you're at home and you're trying to figure out how to best support your child at home, Is it really just an extension of the assistive technology being used at school? Or are there other pieces that a parent might want to utilize to help further support the instruction that's happening? Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. One of the first things I would do is kind of take a look at what are the tasks that are challenging at home. Is it a matter of reading a piece of text? Is it completing a writing assignment? Thinking about it that way, and then trying to figure out, okay, how do we make this so that your child feels more successful with completing the assignment? So one of the things I also try to do within my services is to try to work with the parent so that we can identify those areas of concern, but then think about what are some tools that are available to address those areas. For example, let's say if your child is completing a worksheet at home, and like you said, at the end of the day, they might have, baseball or softball practice, and, you're trying to prepare dinner, and, they're struggling with being able to read the directions or read a passage, or maybe it's filling in the worksheet. So thinking about some tools that would be able to support those specific tasks, and then trying them out. That's one of the first things I really encourage you to do. A lot of programs, both on the computer as well as iPads, they provide free trials and then also free versions. So sometimes that's also a way for you to figure out, is this a tool that's going to be helpful for my child, or do we need to try something else out? And then actually building your child's confidence with trying things out with an approach that they understand how to use the tool, but then also to be able to feel more independent when using the tool. So by talking about the different, icons within the app or within the toolbar, and then thinking about, this is when you actually use it. So thinking, this is when you use it at home, this is when you use it at school. So the implementation piece is very important as well.
Right. That makes sense too. Cause I even think about like, I did an interview a while back about some of the Microsoft tools that are available. And there were pieces, even the Office suite that I didn't even realize was in there, as far as some of the pieces it can provide for you, as far as, reading text back, and different apps you could use to scan in like a worksheet and then type on the worksheet and print it out. Like there was just some things and some pieces I was like, oh, this is very interesting. And like I said, I'm a techie person. Like I love techie stuff and just ways to organize and things like that. And so those were all very interesting to me. But I think what I'm hearing you say correctly is that part of what you do now, though, is really connecting, specifically for this podcast, because I know you work with educators, but specifically for parents and students, you're really connecting them with your services, figuring out what is the best, assistive technology, and then helping them figure those components out. So if it's training with the student, or it's training with the parent, or if you're training, I don't know, you may provide training as a family. I'm not sure what all you do with families. Tell us a little bit about that and how you have seen that really, really shine a light on things, because I can imagine, like with anything new that we do, if we're not familiar with it, and for many moms listening, they're still pretty new to dyslexia and trying to figure that out. And so some of these components they might not be aware of. And I'm going to put a bet out there. You tell me if I'm wrong, that I bet you have even worked with families where then the adults have taken some of these pieces and said, oh, now I can use these for my own personal benefit and work, because we know that dyslexia has that hereditary piece. So there are dyslexics in your family that are adults that we were not aware of these pieces. And so really, as you think, as families listen and moms listen today, think about it broadly too, that some of these assistive technology pieces are not only to help your child, but it could help you. It could help a spouse. It could help an older student in your home. So talk a little bit about that, because I'm excited to hear, kind of how you have dug into this a little deeper to really partner with families.
Absolutely. So that's honestly why I'm so passionate about assistive technology for dyslexia, because having those moments when they realize, wow, I can have this text read back to me, or wow, this word prediction with the text to speech, or, all these different tools, and to show them this is built into your device, or this is a program, and there's nothing like it. And that's honestly why I created this business as well, to be able to try to figure out, how can I help to reach more people? So, working within the school district, working with those teachers and parents and students, and providing professional development and doing presentations through our local IDA branch, people started to come up to me afterwards and say, I want to learn more. What else is out there? And I wanted to think about a way to reach more people. So thinking about that whole team approach and thinking about the journey and the process, I wanted to be able to support parents as they're going through this journey. And there's so much information out there, and it's so hard to try to figure out, okay, what is a credible resource? Where do I go? How do I go about this whole journey, both with the school and with your child, and figuring out what works, what doesn't work. So thinking about the whole team. And then my approach is also multi-level. So thinking about a consultation. So trying to figure out what are those areas of need and what are your child's strengths, and then focusing on training. So this is how you actually use the tools, and this is when you use the tools. And then the implementation piece. So with my experience, I've seen tools get abandoned and students not embrace the technology. And there's so many things to consider when incorporating the assistive technology, both in school and at home. So thinking about those things, thinking about those challenges that can arise, and try to have a plan in place. So on my Instagram, I also try to provide some resources so that you think about it. Like, let's talk about the device. Is the device staying at school, or is it going home each night? Is it staying at home? Then thinking, where is it going to be charged? Do you have the accessories? Do you have those headphones? And then there's so many components to think about. So I try to help support parents by showing them these are different resources that are out there. These are some supports, and these are some tools that are available, and this is how you use them.
Okay. So Katie, absolutely love this, because this, there's so many components to raising a child with dyslexia, and there's the remediation piece and making sure that's happening, and then partnering with your school to make sure the support is there during the day. And then there's the whole piece of, trying to also nurture these strengths and these interests that our children have, so they can be amazing, people at some point in their life, and adults, and they're fulfilled and whatnot. And just, trying to help nurture this amazing little person that's, for some of us, bigger people at this point. But as I hear you talking, though, I get kind of fired up and excited about it, because I think about, from a mom perspective, right? Like, there's just, and you understand, you're a mom, there's so much on our plate on a daily basis. If you're working in the home or outside the home, running a business, working somewhere, maybe just getting your 4 kids back and forth, whatever that looks like, we just have a level of go, go, go all the time. And it would be so lovely to partner with someone like you, where you could say, I got this. Like, I know what you need to know. You don't need to stress about it. I've done the research. I've got the certifications. I have the training. I'm not just slapping up, a website, and here I am. Like, I know I have a background in this, and I'm passionate about this. And I hear that from you. But I also love the thought of, again, there's just so many things every day that I have to remember to do, that it would be lovely to partner with someone like you to say, okay, I know that we need additional tools at home. So for you to partner and work with our family and look at things and really kind of work it out, and to say, okay, Nicole, here's your little checklist. These are the 5 things, Hattie needs to do every night. She needs to put her charger, you need to have a note at the door to grab it and put it in the bag, or like whatever those are. I love that you've thought through those, and you've probably trained lots of people on those, where as a mom, I'd have to remember, now, what all am I supposed to do again, Katie? And you're like, okay, we got this. This is what you need to do. And just having just another person in your tribe, in your community, in your village, whatever you want to call it, that continues to support your child and your family, so everyone can be successful and take just a little bit of stress off the day. It sounds amazing. My hand's up. I'm ready to get started. So tell me about when someone contacts you and says, okay, Katie, I want to learn more about this. And you talked about, the different pieces a few minutes ago. Is that, I know you probably do consultation calls, but then if let's say if I was to partner with you about, working with my 5th grader, is that like a month-long journey? Is that a 6-week journey? I mean, what does that typically look like when you start working with a family?
So to be honest, it completely varies. just naturally because everybody's level of technology is completely different, and then everybody's needs are also completely different. So that's one of the things that I really try to cater my training sessions to meet your specific needs. Like, this is not a one size fits all kind of thing. So I try to get some information about your child and think about what are those strengths and then what are those areas of need. And then I put together, depending on what you feel most comfortable with, it can be over the phone or through a virtual call. And I try to incorporate an overview of assistive technology because, again, having those conversations with the school so that you feel more confident when you're reaching out to the teachers or the case managers, so that you understand what is assistive technology, what are some things that are available, and what might be helpful for my child. So overview of assistive technology, and then specific programs and tools that might be helpful. So I can go through what those tools look like, and then have you go through step by step on your own computer. That's another thing, the approach, rather than just watching. And sometimes I'll do that too, depending on what you feel most comfortable with. I can demonstrate, and then you can try it on your own. Or sometimes people like to jump right in, and then I'm walking you through it step by step of, okay, you go here and then you click on this button. And sometimes even the first initial step of installing, an extension and then getting that set up is a reason to abandon it. Oh, I couldn't get it to work, or the account wasn't set up correctly, so we couldn't get it linked to, where I needed it to be. So I walk you through every single step, and I come to where you're at in terms of your level of comfort.
That is huge, because I don't know if everybody realizes it that's listening, but that's amazing because, at this point in time, everything is so unique to our child and our family situation and how comfortable we are as a family with technology. Like I said, we're kind of techie people in our household, but still, even like running the podcast, I can't tell you, and you probably know, like I have a WordPress for my website, and I'll go to something and get stuck, and I'm like, okay. And I just walk away for a while. Like sometimes I'll just say, well, I'm just not going to do that because I can't figure it out. Right. And then I have to remind myself to go back and work on it again and, take a deep breath. It's okay. But we really can't afford to do that with our kids, right? Like we got to go all in and try to figure this thing out. And so I love that you're able to, it's not, and to me, that gives you another level of credibility because you recognize it's not a one size fits all. You recognize that I could just record a video and throw it out there. You may watch it, you may not. But if I'm partnering with you, then I can call you back on Friday and go, Katie, this so didn't work. Like this was not a good fit for us. And then you're going to say, well, why not, Nicole? Where did you get stuck? And I'm assuming, and we're going to walk through that. And it may just be that it's a piece that you're like, hey, like you said, I think you got stuck because you didn't realize there was a default setting you had to unclick, right?
Totally.
Because you find things all the time. You're like, well, how did, I'll Google something. It'll say, unclick this button. I'm like, I didn't even know the button was automatically clicked on that program. So, if you don't know the backdoor kind of pieces of those pieces to be more successful, it can get very frustrating. And I say that to say that even I feel like I'm somewhat savvy with technology, I get stuck, right? And so I get if their mom's listening that technology has not been your thing, or you've not, you get on IG and you comment, but as far as like figuring out websites and things like that, that may feel a little intimidating. And that's where Katie can come in and help you feel more at ease, that she can tell you exactly what you need to know, and you don't have to worry about all the little pieces that go along with that. She's going to take that away where it's more approachable and easier to understand. And then what's the beauty of that I love is that I said earlier and kind of laughed, when the kids are home, they're with mom and dad and they look different, they act different. Same thing with you. If I sit down and try to explain something technology wise, I guarantee you, if Katie were to say, hey, Hattie, here's how we're going to do this, she'd be all into that, right? Like, ooh, I'm learning something new from this amazing person. And so I say that to say that's yet another just kind of weight lifted, because now I know that you can also partner with our family to work directly with our child to say, okay, let me kind of walk you through this piece too, especially as they get older and they want even more independence to be able to, I got this. I don't need you looking over my shoulder, because we all know they get there. And so I think that's amazing. So is there anything else you want to share before we kind of go into where people can find you and follow you and connect with you? Is there anything we've left out today that you feel like Oh, I really wanted Nicole to ask me this. Is there any question that you wish I had asked you?
I don't think so. I mean, we were able to cover the whole journey and, why I'm so
Awesome.
passionate about what I do. So
Awesome. Well,
I
let me
think,
ask you this question. I love to ask this question to
sure.
moms. Is has nothing to do with dyslexia, but what is the best piece of mom advice you've ever received?
Oh, that's a really good one. I would say that that everything is just a phase or a moment, and that has taught me in both the challenging times and then also during the really special times. Thinking about, okay, this moment, it's not going to be here forever, but to cherish it. But then also realize that if it's really, really hard, it's just a moment. And,
Right.
moving forward, there's going to be other moments ahead too. So
I love
um,
that.
that's probably the best piece.
Yeah, I love that. And I remember my mom taught me something similar too, which was, you know, it was when my daughter was a baby, and she's like, these things like just change so quickly, like just the stages change so quickly. And I remember her saying, about the time you think you figured it out, she's going to change and start doing something else. So, it's like this is it goes back to that whole journey piece, right? Like this is all a journey, but I love the piece that you shared. That's perfect. And, I spent a lot of time this summer thinking about that as we were going into fifth grade, because I'm thinking we don't have many summers left. And that was stressful, like to think of like, just a few more summers and she'll be gone. And so that was kind of tough to think about. But yeah, you're so right to cherish those pieces. And to know if you're in a place where you're struggling today, you're
Mhm.
going to get through it.
Yeah.
There are going to be challenges and struggles as a parent, as a mom. But again, I love the advice of that this too shall pass, as they say.
My dad always used the phrase, you are where you are when you are there. So, thinking about that and cherishing those moments is definitely something I hold on to each day.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for that. So, where can we connect with you, collaborate, follow you? Where can we find you?
Sure. At assistivetechnologyfordyslexia.com is my website. And then you can also find me on Instagram and Facebook as well at Assistive Technology for Dyslexia.
Perfect. Well, Katie, I am so just honored to have you on the show, especially for Dyslexia Awareness Month. I just more that we can do to bring awareness to the resources and the education around dyslexia and how we can help. I think that, we're on the right path. And so I so appreciate you being here and sharing. And thank you for the work that you do. It is valued and it's appreciated. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Dyslexia Mom Life podcast. I really enjoyed the opportunity to connect and collaborate with Katie. I hope you heard that in the podcast. I have a special place in my heart for technology. I really enjoy technology and technology tools and things that can help us be more productive and, more importantly, help our children with dyslexia thrive. If you need more dyslexia resources, please go to dyslexiamomlife.com. That's our website. We have articles there, other podcast links. We also have resources for you as well that may be helpful along your journey. And if you'd like to join our community, we have a private Facebook community at Dyslexia Mom Life podcast community, and just ask to join. It's free, and we have amazing moms in there who are part of our community, along with advocates and attorneys and just lots and lots of people with lots of knowledge. You jump in and provide amazing feedback when we need it. So thank you to all that are already in that group that constantly provide feedback for our members, and it's just a very collaborative and supportive environment. So I would love for you to join that, and I look forward to connecting with you there and having conversation in the Facebook group as well. So I appreciate you. If you wouldn't mind, the biggest compliment you could give me is to go to Apple Podcast and leave a review so that other moms can find our podcast. And I read each of those reviews personally, so that way I know which episodes really resonate with you and what you want to hear more of. So thank you to those who've taken the time to do that. It means the world to us. And remember, you got this. Go out and have an amazing week.